Hello and welcome to Scream Scene, the horror movie podcast where we watch every horror movie ever made in chronological order and then we rank them from best to worst. My name's Sarah.
And I'm Ben.
Thank you for listening to us today. How are you today, Ben?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm all right. We're recording this just after Easter. We saw our family over at Easter like people normally do.
Has Christ risen yet, or is he still behind the boulder?
No. He rises on Easter Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's Good Friday because he's dead.
Yes. He's crucified on Good Friday. He has a journey through hell on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then he's back on Sunday.
Okay.
Because it's the third day.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Back after a 3-day hiatus, it's Jesus Christ.
I don't know if that's what you're doing is blasphemy.
It's probably.
Anyways, how are you, Sarah?
I'm doing well. I enjoy all of the leftovers that we got. We got copious amounts, and I just love leftovers. It just makes eating very easy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I am excited for today's movie. Because we're talking about our boy Edgar Allan Poe yet again.
Yes. So today we are watching Tales of Terror from 1962, directed by Roger Corman. And this is the fourth film in the Poe cycle from AIP and Roger Corman. And it's all your favorites. Richard Matheson returns to write the screenplay, Floyd Crosby's shooting it, Les Baxter's doing the music, and Vincent Price stars instead of Ray Milland.
He's fine. He's just bland.
So with Vincent Price here, the gang's all back together. By this point, Corman was starting to kind of get sick of making the Poe movies.
But there are so many ahead.
Yeah, it's a bad sign. This is the fourth one. There are 8 in total.
Oh no.
So we are halfway through and he's starting to lose interest. AIP wanted the series to continue, but Corman was feeling kind of exhausted at this point. Like he just wasn't feeling up to it. For this reason, he decided to yet again delay Mask of the Red Death, which was like after Usher, it was kind of after Usher and Pit and the Pendulum, it was the other one where he was like, this would make a good movie. And he keeps kind of like pushing it off for various reasons.
I can understand that. Like you want to feel, it's going to be a good movie. So you want to feel like you're ready to actually put your effort into it.
Yeah.
But you have to do something and you're like, well, I'm not ready. So I guess I'll just do this.
Yeah. So what they decided to do was something a little different. Rather than extend one of Poe's plot-light short stories to feature length, he decided to adapt 3 stories into short films, with each one filmed in a week to make an anthology picture. And to change up the formula even more, he allowed the middle story, which is kind of a mix of Black Cat and Cask of Amontillado, to have some humor injected into it. A twist that would foreshadow the future of the Poe movies.
Oh no.
So, Sarah, we've got sort of 4 Poe short stories getting turned into 3 segments of this movie. Why don't you give our readers the sort of crash course background they'll need to know so we can compare how the adaptation is later?
Absolutely. What I'm particularly excited about is so out of these 4 stories, 2 of them we've never seen adapted before. So the short stories that are adapted are Morella, The Black Cat, Facts in the Case of Mr. Valdemar, and The Cask of Amontillado. In that order is when they were published.
Oh, okay.
Let me give some background, though. Because, sometimes people don't know who Edgar Allan Poe is, and it's part of my mission to make sure everyone knows that he married his 13-year-old cousin.
There we go, yep. I was waiting for it.
So Edgar Allan Poe was born in 1809, and sadly died fairly young at 40 years old, so in 1849. He was one of the first American authors to make a go of being an author as like his full-time job. Typically it tended to be, someone's side gig or something like that. While he managed to scrape by, his efforts were definitely hampered by the lack of copyright law, both in the States and in Europe. A lot of his stuff was plagiarized over in Europe, and he really struggled to make a living, so he often would take editor jobs for various journals, while also writing and contributing to those journals all across New England. Now, he's known for horror and macabre stories, but he also did detective stories, mystery, and also would go across formats, including literary essays, poems, short stories, and one novel. Because when you're trying to make this your full-time gig, you have to write a lot. You can't put a year behind a single piece of work like a novel. You gotta pump that stuff out. So the first of these short stories that we'll talk about today is Morella. It was published in 1835 in the Southern Literary Messenger. At this time of Poe's career, in 1835, he was assistant editor for the Southern Literary Messenger. He had been fired for being drunk on the job because throughout his entire life, he's always struggled with alcoholism. But later he is reinstated. This year is also the year that he married his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia. So I wonder if, given the timing of when he was brought back to the magazine, if he's like, look, I'm married now. I'll get my shit together.
I'm a responsible man, yeah.
Yeah. Morella is... Its form is almost like a poem. And it's very short. You can read it in under 10 minutes. I did. The name Morella likely comes from the name for belladonna, the Latin name for belladonna.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of gives you an inkling as to who Morella is. So there's a man who is married to Morella who is not a very beautiful woman. She seems to have all these chronic illnesses, but she's very smart. And the guy starts to get a little intimidated by this. She's reading philosophies, particularly philosophy around identity. She's reading about religion and occult subjects, reincarnation, things of that sort. As she gets more well-read, her health declines further. So as her brain grows, her body lessens.
Got it.
And eventually he grows to kind of resent her because of these chronic illnesses and kind of hopes that she dies. In one kind of afternoon, she feels like she's, I'm not long for this world. And she tells him a prophecy that who you hated in life, you'll love in death. And then she gives birth to a daughter and she dies in the childbirth. Now, this daughter, the narrator, he absolutely adores. But she's also a little uncanny. She seems to look very much like Morella. And as she grows, she seems to be just as smart, almost like the brain of an adult woman is in this child's head.
Morella figured out Bene Gesserit's secrets.
So he adores his daughter, but has not given her a name because of these weird ties to Morella. And so the kid is 10 years old and he's like, no, okay, we have to do a baptism. Maybe this will get rid of any kind of weirdness she seems to have.
Yeah. Should have done that sooner, maybe.
And with the baptism is when I'll also name her. So they start to do the baptism, and when the priest asks for the girl's name, out of nowhere, the narrator says, Morella, giving that as her name, in which then the daughter cries, yes, it's me, I'm here, and then falls over dead. The narrator is incredibly upset and grieving, and when he takes the body of his daughter to the family crypt, he sees that the old Morella's remains are not there. So that's the story.
Very creepy and spooky. I think if it's the 1840s and you aren't genre savvy enough to be able to see every twist ahead of time. But yeah.
Well, that's why it's short.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have time to think about twists. Now, death and sickness and wasting away type of diseases feature in a lot of Poe works, and that's because, you know, growing up he saw his mother waste away, and kind of the most important woman in his life, Virginia, slowly dies from tuberculosis over the course of his life. And in 1842 is when Virginia first shows the signs of having tuberculosis, which exacerbates his own alcohol use. As his alcoholism gets worse, he begins to alienate himself from his colleagues. So his professional life and relationship with like literary figures are going downhill. He accuses them of plagiarism, regardless of whether that's legitimate or not. And it's around this time in 1843 that he publishes The Black Cat, published in the United States Saturday Post. What's interesting with The Black Cat is it features a drunkard who, like, hurts animals, kills his wife, and so the fact that he is, like, slowly going down the road of alcoholism in his own life, it's interesting to me that this is also when he publishes The Black Cat.
Sure, it's kind of his, like, most, like, misanthropic story in terms of like the bad attitude that pervades it.
Yeah. So in The Black Cat, as I said before, we follow a drunken and abusive husband who beats his wife and their house cat, who is a black cat. He ends up killing the cat. Eventually they do get a new one that looks exactly the same, except it has a little bit of white on its chest. He ends up attacking the cat again in a drunken stupor, and the cat loses an eye. Eventually, the man goes so far as to end up killing his wife. To hide the body, he puts her up in a wall and plasters over it. And when police come by to go like, hey, we haven't seen your wife around for a while. We've heard some disturbances from your neighbors. What's going on? They start to hear meowing from behind the wall, which alerts the police that something's in there. They open it up, they find the body, and the cat was also in the wall. So like I said, very interesting how it's like, you know, the villain of the story is this drunkard, and Poe is dealing with his own demons.
Yeah, there's also like a lot of through lines in Poe's work that you can track, like dead wives and like themes around guilt where you're like worried that someone's going to find out your big horrible secret and putting things behind walls.
He did have a fear of being buried alive.
Right.
Now, the work that Poe is most famous for, he's known for a lot of stuff because he wrote so much, but the thing that made him a household name is 1845's The Raven. And while, yes, it made him a household name, it did not translate into financial success. And it's later in 1845 that he publishes the short story, The Facts in the Case of Mr. Valdemar, which is interesting for another thing that I'll get into later. But at least, hey, you're a household name. People recognize your name in the publications. They want to pick up your stuff. Another common theme in his work was tuberculosis. That's what Morella is dying of. And it's also what the character in our next story is dying of, Mr. Valdemar. So when The Facts in the Case of Mr. Valdemar was published, The Raven was published in February 1845, and Valdemar is published in December 1845. Okay. So he's a household name at this point. People recognize, Poe. Oh, I know he's really good at writing very spooky stuff. He would write in a lot of different styles, like I said. And because he was an editor, he would read a lot of different weird things.
Right.
So with the short story for Mr. Valdemar, he wrote it like a medical scientific journal article.
Got it.
Of like, here are the facts in the case of this person. Now, the narrator He experiments with hypnotism, and he wants to see what happens if someone was hypnotized and then dies. What happens if you're hypnotized and then, like, just before death?
Mm-hmm.
So he finds Mr. Valdemar. He's dying of tuberculosis, and he consents to this experiment. He is hypnotized and will report that, yes, I'm dying. And then later, when asked to report about his condition, he says, I have died. But yet he's still hypnotized. He's still in this, like, in limbo state and semi-conscious. He's kept like this for like 7 months. He has no pulse. He's barely breathing, if at all. And he's pale and cold to the touch. Now, this experiment has gone on for so long that during one of the question periods with the narrator, Valdemar asks to either be, like, woken up or to let him die, to essentially get to be fully asleep. He is awoken and brought out of the hypnotism, and he shouts, "Dead, dead!" before he decays in front of our eyes, not into dust, but into this gross liquid putrescence, kind of like the Senator in X-Men.
Okay, got it.
Now, people thought that this was real. They thought that this truly happened because it read like a scientific journal. So people would write into the magazine to be like, what the fuck? People wrote to Poe to be like, what did you do? Like, how did you do this? People who knew him in the literary world. And I think that's because, like, he's such a well-known name. People started to think that, like, this was a legitimate thing. But then when it was, then classified as a hoax, it kind of got, unfortunately, turned back onto him of like, you're writing hoaxes, you're telling lies. And he's like, this was always meant to be fiction.
Yeah, it's sort of the Orson Welles, case.
Yeah. So that, the facts in the case of Mr. Valdemar, that comes out December 1845. He continues working, but Virginia's condition is worsening. His alcoholism is worsening. So his work output is suffering as a result. The last story that we'll kind of speak to today is The Cask of Amontillado, published in November 1846. Virginia would die in January of 1847, so a couple months later. Has nothing to do with this short story, but it's important.
Context,
It's context for where Poe is at in his head. So in The Cask of Amontillado, it is set in Italy around Carnival, and basically this gentleman named Montresor, which is interesting that we get, like, a name.
Yeah, usually people in Poe stories don't get names.
Yeah, they're the narrator or unnamed narrator. But Montresor invites this guy named Fortunato to come into his basement to sample this great Amontillado that he has purchased. And, he purchased it, but he's not 100% sure that it's the real deal Amontillado. So he's like, Fortunato, you know drinking, you know wines, you know all this. Come on down, sample it, tell me if it's real, and we'll keep talking. But it's all a guise because he is luring Fortunato into a trap. He plans to bring him down into the catacombs and wall him up behind brick walls. This is all with, like, as revenge because Fortunato has insulted Montresor. The short story ends, he walls Fortunato up. They get, they're talking back and forth, so there is some good dialogue, but the body's never found. Montresor gets away with it. He's like, the body's been down there for 50 years. May he rest in peace. Mm-hmm. I've gotten away with this.
Yeah, like the whole idea is that he's sort of getting Fortunato drunker and drunker as they're trying the wine so that he doesn't notice that Montresor's in the process of walling him up, right?
Oh, there is no wine. He is getting him drunker.
Yes.
But
the
there is no wine.
Amontillado doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But they're drinking.
Yeah. And at first Fortunato's like, oh, you're such a jokester.
Yeah. What
are you doing here? Putting these bricks and cement all around me. What is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, those are the 4 short stories. We've seen other adaptations where, like, the Black Cat and Amontillado get combined because of the idea of, like, a body behind a wall of some sort. We've even seen that a little bit in some of the adaptations of Telltale Heart adaptations where it's kind of like a thing, but yeah.
Yeah, like we've seen a lot of Black Cat adaptations at this point, sometimes in movies called The Black Cat, sometimes as scenes in other movies. It's in Maniac. Sometimes the adaptation is extremely loose, like nothing in Edgar G. Ulmer's The Black Cat really gives a shit about Edgar Allan Poe. So we've seen a lot of like different versions of some of these stories for sure. So between The Premature Burial, which was the last movie in this series, and this film, Corman had made another movie in the interim, which is a film called The Intruder, which was written by Charles Beaumont, a screenwriter I've talked about before, who worked with Corman. And it was based on Beaumont's novel of the same name from 1959, which itself was based on like a real world incident. The Intruder is a drama film. It's about an outside agitator who from the North who comes to a southern United States town to incite the white population to violence against the town's black population in protest of the recent court-ordered desegregation of schools. The outside agitator in the film was played by William Shatner in a very early role.
Oh, yes, I've seen scenes from that then. I thought that was a TV movie.
No, it was in theaters.
Okay.
They shot it for real in a town in Missouri. Shatner gives a really good performance. It's really about like sort of the power of like someone who's very charming and persuasive to get people riled up into hatred, right?
Mm-hmm. They film it in front of the tree that was the actual site of lynchings in that town.
And they have him do this big racist speech where the way they managed to shoot it was he got all the town out to the town square and was like, I'm making a movie. Do you want to be part of making a movie? And then he shot all the crowd shots, and then he let everybody go home, and he shot all the reverses on Shatner where Shatner's actually doing the speech so that the crowd wouldn't hear the speech. The town they shot in was very mad about the production. They didn't like being portrayed as racists. And it got to a point where Corman had to get the main black actor, who was like a local of the town, out and like pay for him to move to the North once production was done. Corman put his own money into it after United Artists backed out because of the controversial subject matter. And Corman felt like very strongly about the film's message against political demagogues, but the film lost money. Mm-hmm. It was the only Roger Corman film to lose money at that point in his career, which kind of resolved Corman to only make entertaining genre pictures from that point on, like no more serious films. Any message that he did want to express in his films, because he wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be apolitical. It was just, he resolved that like if he was going to put a message in any of his movies, it would be subtext.
Yeah. And we've seen his movies that have that kind of messaging in there, even like the weird kooky shit we watch for the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Like he puts messages in his movies.
Yeah.
But this was without the sugar surrounding the
this
medicine.
Was exactly like this was just straight out like raw nerve kind of stuff, which is why it didn't do well. Like in 1962, like no one wanted to go see this movie that was like exposing the ugly underside of America in this way, right? So that's kind of explains like why he goes back to the Poe films, even though he's kind of sick of doing them. He's had his first major flop in his career as a director. So yeah, I'll take some money to go make like another kind of sure thing, right? Yeah. Richard Matheson was very proud of his screenplay for this picture, although he did feel that the first segment, the Morella segment, didn't come out as well as he would have liked. He thought the daughter was miscast. Each segment in the film stars Vincent Price in a different role. So for Morella, he's the husband, right? In the version of Morella here, there's some pretty big changes made to the text, which become really obvious when I tell you that actress Maggie Pierce plays the daughter, who's named Lenora in this version.
Yeah, that's a big name for Poe as well.
And Leona Gage plays the mother, plays Morella, even though Gage was 8 years younger than Maggie Pierce. So in this version, the daughter makes it to adulthood. Maggie Pierce was born in Detroit in 1931 to English parents. After the death of her mother and brother from disease, she became a registered nurse. She wanted to help people. But losing patients was really hard on her. She didn't deal well with it. So on the advice of one of her coworkers, she got a job as a model. So very different headspace. As she was a model, she kind of got a lot of publicity for also being a nurse. That was kind of her gimmick, was the model who used to be a nurse. And it led eventually, after some TV show appearances and stuff, late night talk show stuff, to a contract with MGM. But they only really ever put her in minor roles. Her MGM contract lasted from 1958 to 1962. And she was always just nurse number one or random minor person. But MGM would always play up her being in the movies for publicity. It's a real nurse. And she's also a model. And she's playing the nurse in this movie who has 2 lines of dialogue. So after her contract ended, she really started putting herself out there. She began appearing in more TV shows than MGM used to let her be in. And Tales of Terror was her first featured role in a feature film.
Nice.
In 1965, she appeared in a lead role as the wife on the sitcom My Mother the Car, which is about a man whose dead mother haunts him by possessing an antique car.
Amazing.
So,
when does that come out in relation to Stephen King's
20 years earlier?
20, okay.
Yeah, before Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was... so Maggie Pierce plays the wife of the guy whose dead mother is haunting the car. That show was canceled after 1 season.
Oof.
The entire industry, before it came out, made fun of it. Everyone was this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Maggie Pierce had to do interviews to promote the show where people were but the show's fucking stupid, right? But when it did come out, it actually didn't do poorly in the ratings. It did well.
Well, everyone wanted to check out the dumb show.
But the reason it really ended after 1 season was the writers increasingly found that it was very difficult to write a plot every week that necessitated the mom possessing the car to get involved. They couldn't think of a way to get this.
The car just drives into the living room, honk honk.
Yeah.
Taking on the Kramer role.
She speaks out of the radio in the car.
Yeah.
But it was just how do you why is the car necessary every week? Her next film after that was called The Fastest Guitar Alive. It was designed as
someone possesses the guitar and it's alive now.
So The Fastest Guitar Alive was designed as a starring vehicle for Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
To get him into movies the way they did with Elvis Presley. The premise is, and this movie came out in 1966 or 67. Keep that in mind. The premise is it's the Civil War. And Maggie Pierce is one of 2 sisters they both fall in love with the same guy, who is Roy Orbison. But Roy Orbison is actually a spy for the Confederacy who's been sent to the North to steal Union secrets to help the Confederate war effort. And his cover is that he's a traveling musician, but his guitar is actually a machine gun.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Do you think it was a good idea for Roy Orbison to play a Confederate in 1966 or 67?
Absolutely.
Anyways, that movie was a flop.
Yeah.
Big flop.
No shit.
So her career kind of stalled after that. She ended up marrying a theater producer and just kind of appeared in the plays that he produced until she retired in the 80s. Her husband passed away in 1994 and she passed away in 2010. The role of Morella is played by Leona Gage, who has a very tragic life.
Oh, no.
So Leona Gage was born in Texas in 1939, and she got knocked up at 13 to a U.S. airman who was 11 years older than her.
Similarities with Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's probably not nice to say. That really sucks for her.
Yeah, so this U.S. airman then like immediately went on like deployment or something. So he was not around.
Yeah.
So her mom got her married to this guy through this program called, what was it? It was like volunteer grooms. It was like men would sign up for this program being like, I want to get married, but like, no one likes me. So like, I'll just marry anyone. So this guy married her. That marriage got annulled after like 2 weeks. The airman came back from his service and married her. So he became her second husband. So they got married. She had her second son with him when she was 16. And then they moved out to Maryland, so way far away from home. The marriage unraveled, unsurprisingly. And so she got a modeling job to take her mind off of her home life. And she ends up winning the Miss USA pageant when she's 18 in 1957.
Wow, good for her.
Well, here's the problem. She lied to the pageant because 18 is younger than the minimum age for Miss USA. And also, you're not allowed to do Miss USA if you were a wife or a mother.
What?
You had to be like a single, unmarried woman without kids to be in the Miss USA pageants.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And here I am going like, damn, you won that after having 2 kids?
Yeah. So she lied to them, said she was unmarried, didn't mention her kids, any of that. Said she was 21, right? And when the truth came out, they stripped her of the title.
Fuck.
The scandal, though, led to a lot of appearances on television, on like late night and stuff. Like, oh, now you're on the Tonight Show to talk about the scandal and stuff. And that led to her getting a showgirl job at the Hotel Tropicana in Las Vegas. And she was kind of able to parlay that into like TV appearances here and there, stuff like that. She divorced her husband in 1958. And by 1961, she was on husband number 4 and had lost custody of her children. She had been charged with child abuse. So you can see that like the life's kind of spiraling here. She goes through 2 husbands in like 4 years. After appearing in Tales of Terror in 1962, she appeared in a few more films, some exploitation movies and little cult hits and things, before attempting suicide in 1965. That doesn't go well for her, I guess. It in the sense that she fails the attempt, I suppose. So she ends up writing like a memoir. Well, she has it ghostwritten for her. And her first book comes out later that year. It's called My Name is Leona Gage. Will Somebody Please Help Me?
Wow.
She then went into burlesque, had 2 more husbands, 3 more children, divorced all the husbands eventually, lost custody of all the kids eventually, and died of heart failure in 2010.
That's rough, man.
Yeah. That's why I warned you up front. For Morella, Corman reused a bunch of sets from House of Usher.
Classic.
He also wanted to like repeat the sort of experiments in visual psychedelic kind of stuff that he had done in the previous 2 or in the first 2 movies. I guess there's a bit of that in Premature Burial too. But he wanted to kind of do something similar for Morella. So what he did was a post-production bleaching effect on the film to render black, white, and green the most prominent colors and kind of like desaturate the other colors.
Does bleach naturally do that?
So I don't know the exact process that he used. You are supposed to bleach film in the development process. It's how you get rid of the silver, and then that makes the colors saturated. There's a process that was invented for the movie 1984 called bleach bypassing, where you developed the film without bleaching it and it gave everything like a very grayish desaturated color. And then that became like everyone's favorite color palette in the 2000s for everything. But here I don't know exactly what he's doing. He must have like done some sort of chemical process so that when he bleached the film, it only saturated like the black, white, and green and maybe left the silver on other colors to desaturate them. It would have been some sort of chemical process to do that.
Okay.
So the middle segment mixes Black Cat and Cask of Amontillado, and it features Vincent Price as Fortunato and Peter Lorre as Montresor.
Ooh.
It has certainly been a while since we last saw Peter Lorre.
15 years?
Yeah, it was 1946's The Beast with Five Fingers.
Yeah.
That's the last time we saw him.
Oof.
Things went really bad for Peter Lorre after 1946. His contract with Warner Brothers was terminated because of his friendship with Bertolt Brecht. Bertolt Brecht, was also, like Lorre, someone who fled Germany for the U.S. in the 30s. But Brecht had suspected Communist Party ties, and he got called to testify to HUAC. Because Lorre was friends with him, Lorre had to testify as a friendly witness to HUAC in order to kind of save his own skin. But he didn't disavow Brecht as his friend. After testifying to HUAC, Brecht kind of chose to leave the United States and go back to Europe. But Peter Lorre was like, yeah, he's still my friend. So Jack Warner terminated his Warner Brothers contract. After that, his career experienced a major downturn because he wasn't on contract to any studios. And by 1949, he had filed for bankruptcy. His marriage with Celia Lovsky broke up in 1945. And his second wife, Karen Verne, divorced him in 1950. In 1950, he returned to West Germany for the first time since he left Germany in the early 30s to write, direct, and star in Der Verlorene, The Lost One, which came out in 1951 and is one of the only films by an immigrant from Germany which uses a character's return to Germany as an opportunity to talk about themes of guilt, responsibility, accountability, and justice.
Would you say it's kind of like a memoir, or like he takes influence from his own experience?
He's playing a fictionalized character so that, because like Peter Lorre, he obviously had very complicated feelings about Germany, but like the character in the film is someone who is much more like directly dealing with issues of accountability.
Okay.
The movie failed at the box office because in 1941, frankly, the West Germans weren't really in the mood for a movie that was like, hey, remember how you guys all kind of collaborated?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely like a movie that made sense to make, but maybe not at this time.
Something that like he had to do for his own conscience, I think. But like, he returned to the U.S. in 1952 and married his third wife, Anne Brenning, who gave Lorre his only child, daughter Catherine. And they were together until he died, so the rest of his life. He found work as a character actor in the U.S. throughout the 1950s, appearing in films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and also appeared a lot on TV, often as a parody of his like creepy image. In 1953, he played Le Chiffre in a TV version of Casino Royale, the first time James Bond was adapted outside of the novels. And by 1962, he is 58 years old, and Vincent Price is 51. A wine taster was brought in to teach Price and Lorre how to look like wine connoisseurs. And Price and Lorre really enjoyed working with each other. They were often like drunk by the afternoon of the workday.
They're drinking wine as part of the production.
Yep. And Lorre would like ad-lib on set. Corman encouraged them to add like humor to the roles, and Lorre wouldn't exactly memorize his lines. He would memorize the gist of his lines and then kind of improv around it.
Sure.
A fake head of Lorre was created for the film, and Price and others on set would amuse themselves tossing it around between takes, except for Lorre. Lorre didn't take part in this because Lorre refused to touch the head. It creeped him out.
That's fair.
Lorre's wife in the segment is played by 35-year-old actress Joyce Jameson, best known for her roles on The Andy Griffith Show and in the film The Apartment. So in this version of the story, Montresor has a wife, like in The Black Cat, but there's also Fortunato. And the revenge on Fortunato is because Fortunato is sleeping with his wife.
Ah.
The third segment in the film, The Case of M. Valdemar, sees Price joined by Basil Rathbone, another old friend of ours who we haven't seen for a while. The last time we saw Basil Rathbone was 1956's The Black Sleep. In this film, Price is Valdemar, and Rathbone's kind of our narrator character.
Sure.
Most of Rathbone's work in the 1950s was in TV, low-budget films, or in spoken word recordings, including a popular line of audio drama Sherlock Holmes adaptations on LP, with Rathbone reprising his most famous role. He is 70 years old at the time of his appearance in this film.
Wow.
Also featured in the segment is Deborah Paget. She was born in 1933 in Denver to a former actress who moved the family to LA, determined to get her daughters into show business.
I didn't make it, but you will.
Yeah. Deborah began acting at age 8 and first appeared on film age 15 in a film noir for Fox. She got a contract with Fox, and her breakout role was in Broken Arrows in 1951, where she plays a Native American. In fact, that began a very long trend in her career of playing exoticized roles. Exoticized and eroticized, we shall say. Her first role with star billing was 1954's Princess of the Nile, where she plays Arab. Then in Demetrius and the Gladiators, she's Roman. In 1956's The Ten Commandments, she's Hebrew. In 1959, she did a very risque belly dance playing Indian in The Indian Tomb. And in 1960's Cleopatra's Daughter, she's Egyptian. So as far as I know, she's not race bending in her role in this movie, so I guess that's a nice change of pace. The biggest special effect in the film was for Valdemar, including an effect using a mud pack to create Valdemar's like dried out face when he's alive but dead after the hypnotism. Like as they're keeping him alive longer and longer, his like face is drying out and cracking. And then there was also a separate effect for when he melts, when he dies, which was done using a mixture of hot glue and a bunch of other things poured over Vincent Price's head to create the melting effect.
So they poured hot glue on Vincent Price.
Yes. Price did not enjoy this.
No.
But he did admit later that he thought the finished effect looked great.
Of course, always a professional.
So Tales of Terror was released June 4th, 1962 by AIP, and it made $1.5 million, beating out Premature Burial's $1.4 million, therefore encouraging AIP and the team to keep making Poe movies.
Yeah.
Critical reaction was mixed. The New York Times called it trashy and recommended that moviegoers go see Burn Witch Burn instead.
Did we watch
Night of the Eagle. Burn Witch Burn was the U.S. title. The L.A. Times warned fans of Poe's writing to stay away from the movie. Variety felt that Corman was as good as ever, but that audiences might be tired of the shtick by now.
I mean, Corman is, so...
But, you know, the movie made money, so I guess not. Monthly Film Bulletin, on the other hand, declared that Corman's Poe pictures were the most consistent mark of quality in horror since Val Lewton's films of the 1940s.
Damn.
They also praised the anthology format for not stretching out the stories too far.
Yeah. That's really high praise.
Mm-hmm. So, Tales of Terror today is streaming on Tubi and Amazon Prime. You can rent it on iTunes and YouTube, and it's also available on Blu-ray from Arrow Video and Kino Lorber.
Okay. I'm really excited. I think the one that's coming to mind for like the last anthology movie we watched was maybe Eerie Tales.
No, we had Dead of Night in the 40s.
Yeah, that's right. But otherwise, yeah, anthology hasn't really been a format we've seen a lot. So I'm excited to see what Corman does with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dead of Night's a classic, but I think one of the reasons it probably went away as a format for horror movies after it was initially kind of popular was TV, because TV gave you a place to do short stories, right?
Sure.
But yeah,
that's true.
We'll see if Corman's exhaustion comes through or if this is a fun time.
Yeah. Well, folks, hopefully you can find a copy to watch along. You're going to hear a brief musical interlude, and when we come back, we will discuss Tales of Terror from 1962, directed by Roger Corman.
See you on the other side, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We just finished watching Tales of Terror from 1962, directed by Roger Corman. Sarah, what did you think of this one?
I thought it was a fun time.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 short quickies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, gotta love them.
Sure. Yeah, I thought this was fine.
Yeah. This is both like, it's a double-edged sword. You know, that it's like, yeah, this is good. You know, Corman's reliable. His crew is reliable.
You get in and out of each story.
Good chills, thrills.
I think the production values are good. Yeah, like you see, you know, we're just getting good product all along here.
The price is right.
Yeah. I do have, like, I think there's a definite weak link in this film, but I don't know. We might want to just go over what happens and how the stories are different, I guess, from
Absolutely.
Poe.
Yeah, because, well, especially Morella, because it's nothing really to do with the short story, actually.
Yeah.
It's more inspired by than adapting. Well, the movie itself opens with Vincent Price having some voiceover. Essentially, the gist is about, you know, how do people react to death? In the case of Morella, the way we transition to it is he has a line that's along the lines of, like, even those who wouldn't succumb to death. Something along those lines.
Yeah, someone who doesn't want to die or you know, wouldn't let themselves die, something like that.
Yeah. In this segment, we see Lenora, a young, like 26-year-old, returning home after a long estrangement from her father. We learned that a few months after she was born, she was sent away and basically supported financially, but otherwise had no real contact with her father. Now returning home, she finds her father in this decrepit house. He is both drunk and ill. There's like cobwebs everywhere, and it seems like the house was like frozen in time after a big party.
To be clear, this house is like a big mansion house on like a cliff overlooking the sea, just like in Follow the House of Usher and Pit and the Pendulum and Premature Burial. So when we say that like the whole place is covered in cobwebs, like it's a big place, and this implies that he doesn't have any staff.
So in addition to finding her father in very ill health, she also finds her mother's corpse on the bed, kind of like mummified in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Egyptian mummified, like just like dry skin.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had a thought of like, oh, maybe I should be explicit here.
Mm-hmm.
We learn that the father, he doesn't have a name, so I'll just call him Locke, which is their last name. Locke explains how he basically sees Lenora as Morella's murderer, Morella being the wife. Morella had been ill after giving birth. She never fully recovered and insisted on them hosting a party and fainted and died at this party. But it turns out Lenora herself is dying, presumably from tuberculosis. It's not really explained. And that's why she's come back. So because of this context, they decide they do their best to reconcile. That night, though, we see the ghost of Morella haunting the halls, and she goes and attacks Lenora, kind of strangling her. She screams, and Locke runs to Lenora and sees her die. And so he puts a sheet over her head and then hears her breathing, pulls the sheet down, and it ends up being Morella, as if Morella has taken the place of Lenora. Locke runs to where he thought Morella was, and it turns out Lenora is there, all mummified. Her corpse is there. And Morella, zombie Morella, I guess you could say, goes to Locke and strangles him, attacks him. They knock over some candles and the house starts to burn down. And once Locke has died, we see that who was actually attacking Locke was Lenora. She had been maybe like possessed by Morella, and now everyone is going to be burned up in the house. And Morella's corpse is still on the bed, but she is smiling instead.
Do you want to talk about each of these like after each one, or save all discussion to the end?
Let's save all discussion to the end.
Okay.
Unless there's anything you want to just like quickly...
Did you mention that Morella on her deathbed was like, I'm going to avenge myself upon the baby?
Yeah, Morella, when we see her corpse and everything, there's some like ghostly voiceover that we as the audience hear that she says, finally, I will have my revenge on my murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we move to The Black Cat with Vincent Price's voiceover about how do we face death? You know, that's the question here. And we follow a man named how did they say it? Montresor?
Okay, so I've always pronounced this guy's name Montresor, but in this movie, the accent is on the middle syllable, so it's Montresor, or
yes,
as
like dinosaur,
right? Or as the wife says, I think she also gives the E a little accent, so she goes like Montresor.
It's very funny.
Yeah, it was a little odd at first to hear. So,
yeah, everyone saying it differently.
Montresor.
So we follow Montresor, who is a mean drunk to both his wife and his wife's black cat. Now, because he has run out of money on one of his drunken tirades, he decides to stumble into a wine tasting convention. Truly a Bugs Bunny situation. This is where he meets Fortunato and challenges Fortunato to a wine tasting competition, really just as a way to like get free wine.
Yeah.
It's very fun seeing Vincent Price as Fortunato doing like this very like posh, like here's how you taste wine and just like having fun with it versus Peter Lorre. Like it's a lot of fun. So Fortunato ends up walking Montresor back home and thus meeting Montresor's wife, and they discover that they are both cat lovers.
Mm-hmm. Fortunato loves that pussy.
Benjamin. So they basically conspired to give Montresor money so he goes out at night and they get to have some alone time for their affair. Montresor finds out and attacks the wife and then invites Fortunato over for dinner for some like pre-dinner drinks. He offers Fortunato some Amontillado, but it is actually poisoned. So Fortunato falls over, he faints, and wakes up being chained up in the cellar. Next to him is the wife's dead body, also chained up, and Montresor is laying bricks to put them in. Now that he has dealt with these two betrayers, Montresor finds the wife's hidden money and goes drinking. While out, he happens to let slip to the bartender about the wife not needing money where she is. So the bartender gets the cops involved. Now, throughout this segment, it is established that Montresor sometimes hallucinates, like he sees a rattlesnake on the bed or something like that. And it is either like a mental condition or a result of having drank too much.
Yeah.
Now, once the cops are involved, he is seeing a lot of these hallucinations quite frequently, like bugs and snakes everywhere, including seeing Fortunato and his wife at the bottom of the stairs taunting him while the cops are coming down into the cellar. As the cops are searching, they end up hearing the cat behind the wall. So they break down the wall and then they find the bodies. So that's it for Montresor. And then as we move into the final segment about Mr. Valdemar, and I always go to say Voldemort because it's a very similar name. So my apologies in advance. The question is kind of posed to us about like what happens on the other side. So we see Mr. Valdemar and his wife, Eileen, a medical doctor named James, and a hypnotist named Mr. Carmichael, all on scene here. And basically, Mr. Carmichael uses hypnotism to help manage pain from a degenerative and terminal illness for Valdemar. Because Carmichael seems to be doing this out of the kindness of his own heart, Valdemar is more than happy to agree to the death experiment that I kind of explained in the first half. We see as the story kind of goes on as well that the wife Eileen and Dr. James are, they're much closer in age, and so they do have feelings for each other, but they're both like, no, I respect your husband or my husband too much to do anything about it. Valdemar sees this, and so he explicitly gives his consent for them to be together once he passes. So he's nearly dying. They do the hypnotism, which Eileen and Dr. James are both against, because Mr. Carmichael just gives off these like heebie-jeebie vibes. It doesn't quite feel right. Dr. James is also just like, he can't really explain why medically this is not good, but just like all of this seems to not really vibe with the Hippocratic Oath things, it seems.
Yeah, Dr. James has a bit of like the flavor of like man was not meant to play God, like kind of vibe around hypnotism.
And Carmichael is like, I'm just removing his pain.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing more.
I also get really excited about commanding him.
Yes. Like, keep it in the bedroom, my guy. So yeah, they do the hypnotism as Valdemar is dying, and eventually he has some ragged breathing and almost like a disembodied voice. We hear his voice and the characters hear his voice, but his lips aren't moving. And he explains that he has died and he's gone to the other side. All of this is really upsetting to Eileen, rightfully so. And we also hear a little bit about what it's like on the other side. There's just a lot of people milling about. It's all darkness, that sort of thing. Kind of like purgatory is sort of what he's describing.
Mm.
If you want to go with like the traditional, like Dante's levels of hell.
Sure.
Despite Eileen and Dr. James begging for the experiment to end, Carmichael continues the experiment for months. Valdemar's voice becomes kind of this like otherworldly wail heard throughout the house, and he too begs to be released from this hypnotism. However, under the hypnotism, he is manipulated to tell Eileen that actually, I don't want you to marry Dr. James, I want you to marry Carmichael instead. Now, Dr. James has had enough of this, and he does pull a gun on Carmichael to be like, release him or I'll kill you. And Carmichael is like, if you kill me, he'll never be released, so what are you doing? Carmichael, by the way, he's very intentionally like manipulating Valdemar. Like he's clearly bad guy here.
Yeah. Trying to get with Eileen has clearly been like his objective the whole time, it seems.
Yeah. So after, this declaration that, no, I want you to marry Carmichael instead of the doctor, she turns to Carmichael and says, like, look, I know you're manipulating him, but I will marry you if you release him. Carmichael refuses and says, no, I hold all the cards. I'm going to keep him like this in order to force you into marriage. Ha 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 ha, evil laughter. And it's at this point that Valdemar repossesses his body to go and attack Carmichael. As he's getting closer to Carmichael, and throughout the possession, he gets more gooey with the hot glue on his face and everything, and he attacks and kills Carmichael. Eileen and Dr. James, he manages to get into the room. He gets Eileen out of there, and they see this like crumpled up body of just skin and bones and gooiness.
He melted. He
melted all over Carmichael and killed him. But Eileen and Dr. James get away. So then the movie ends, and then we get the credits.
Yeah, this movie doesn't have opening credits. It's got the title that comes up right at the start, but no studio logos. Like, it's just the title just comes up. And then all of the credits are at the end, which is something that like is what we're used to now with like a lot of modern movies, but like sort of abnormal at the time. There's one nice, funny touch in those credits that I liked, which is normally these AIP movies at the start of the movie will say James H. Nicholson and Samuel Z. Arkoff present, and in this one it says have presented Tales of Terror because the movie's over.
That's fair. Yeah.
That was a fun little detail.
So these 3 stories, not necessarily accurate as direct adaptations.
Valdemar is probably the closest.
Probably. But the mood and weirdness do fit with what I would expect from someone doing something with a Poe story. So they haven't gone like completely out of left field.
I think that, you know, obviously Price, Lorre, and Rathbone are the star draws here. Their co-stars, I think the women in the cast range from middling to acceptable. Like, I don't think anyone's truly bad, but like Leona Gage's Morella doesn't really get a lot to do. She mostly just sort of looms over the story. And even once she's alive again, they don't give her a lot of dialogue. So that plays to the fact that like she's not much of an actress. The actress who plays Lenora, Maggie Pierce, but you know, she's all right. Joyce Jameson in the Black Cat segment is kind of weak. She was like best known for recurring roles on TV. So I think overall, like the best actress in the movie is Diana Paget in the 3rd segment. But I think that makes sense because she was the most accomplished actress of the bunch. She'd been in like A movies since the early 50s.
But also her character's kind of the one who gets the most to do.
Yeah, she has the most agency for sure. Whereas like Price, Lorre, and Rathbone, I think you can see are clearly having fun going over the top here.
Yeah.
And as we were watching this movie, I had this thought seeing these guys, because they're all getting up there, right? And as I talked about in the first half, like Rathbone and Lorre's careers had kind of slowed way down.
Yeah.
I feel like Roger Corman's kind of like Quentin Tarantino in the sense that he's like giving these roles to these old favorites of his who like aren't getting a lot of work and kind of reviving their careers. Like that's a thing Tarantino became very famous for doing with people like John Travolta and Pam Grier and Kurt Russell, that kind of thing. I think Laurie's a lot of fun here.
Yes.
But he's a little one note.
Yes. And part of that is like the comedy in The Black Cat is really focused around drunkenness. And that's not really the comedy for me.
Sure.
So I didn't really find a lot of that funny. The fun parts for me were the sassiness from Price and Lorre.
Yes. I think Laurie's best stuff in this is the little under his breath kind of mumbled like dialogue, right? Where it's like, you know, he hands Fortunato the glass of Amontillado and I hope you enjoy this glass, Fortunato, and then like turns around and is like, it will be your last. And then, you know, and then Price is like, did you say something? It's like, oh no.
What was that?
Yeah. That stuff's really fun. I think Rathbone is doing everything he can to have as much screen presence as possible in a kind of underwritten role. Like there's not much to Carmichael aside from like, ha ha ha, I shall steal your wife. Like,
yeah. His voice is as great as ever.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah. I feel like this is a really good Price showcase. Like, I think it was designed to be a Price showcase, but like, I really enjoyed getting to see him do, like, it's all a little overacting, but it's all fun. And like, he's doing his thing and none of it feels like he's giving it the weight that it deserves. None of it feels like tongue in cheek, except for maybe the wine drinking contest. But like, it's just fun. It's just fun to see people like who are competent do good shit. And clearly they are enjoying themselves as well.
Yeah, I think Price is having a lot of fun sort of playing like these different ages and these different personalities of all these characters. His Fortunato's like, you know, kind of a fop and a dandy. And then like his character of Locke in the first segment is more like classically what Vincent Price tends to be in these movies.
Yeah.
And then Valdemar is kind of just like this nice old man who goes through a bad time.
Yeah.
So the weak link in this movie for me, the thing that like I think lets a lot of this movie down, is the screenplay and the writing, which is interesting given that like Richard Matheson's on record as saying he was really proud of this screenplay.
Yeah, I was thinking about that comment you said he made about Lenora being miscast. And it's like, maybe because the actress isn't like as well and accomplished, you know, so it doesn't have like the skill that he's expecting. But like, yeah, I was kind of disappointed with the way that he adapted, particularly the first one. But like, I don't know. I think Matheson kind of needs to get off his high horse.
Well, like, so the framing where it's like, oh, these are all tales about death and here's why they're all kind of related is really weak. Like they're stretching, especially for Black Cat, but like they're stretching on these connections. I think Valdemar works best because it's changed the least. Mm-hmm. But in all three cases, there are things about the changes Matheson makes that render parts of the story nonsensical in a way that the Poe originals aren't. Even though Poe's like very famous for having very vague and kind of like non-explanatory stories. And it's sort of, I've talked about this many times on the podcast before, but that thing in adaptations where you change one thing without thinking about how it changes the others. So like in Valdemar, there's all this stuff about like, oh, I'm going to force you to marry me. And oh, like I've been experimenting on your husband without, even though you don't want me to, in your house for months. Because that's the thing is he does this on Valdemar's deathbed and then just like keeps him in the deathbed the whole time. So Carmichael's just been living in Elaine's house for like months.
The servants come to give him his wine before dinner. Like,
and then like, you know, she comes back with James and Dr. James is like, this is all over, Carmichael. Like, I'm going to force you to stop the experiment. And Carmichael's like, oh, how? And then James pulls a gun. And it's like, why don't you guys get a court order?
Yeah.
It's not his house. He doesn't have a legal right to be here. Valdemar's dead, so it's Elaine's house. And if like Carmichael's going to be like, well, if you do that, I'm not going to let him out of the trance. You get a court order to make him let him out of the trance.
But also like he's dead ? Like, is that enough to end the current marriage so you can actually get married to Elaine?
Yeah.
Like, is she actually back on the market? Like,
and then as much as I think like, oh, Carmichael attacks Elaine so that like rises Valdemar from his sleep and he zombie stumbles towards Carmichael and attacks him. Like, as much as that's a more like action-packed finale to the story, it doesn't make sense. Like, how did Valdemar manage to do that? Like, he just willed it, I guess. Whereas like in the Poe story, it's like, no. Like, we hypnotized him right before he died. We kept him in a hypnotic trance through death. And when we released him from the hypnotic trance, his body decayed. Like,
yeah, I think there's like something in the nugget of this story with this adaptation that like Carmichael's not a good guy. And the whole point of putting Valdemar under hypnosis was to make dying as like easy as possible. And they say lines like, so that the release is calm and chill, and they use the word chill. No, they don't. And through the wailing of his voice, it's clear that he's clearly in agony. If we wanted to make this story better in this adaptation, it should be more like, oh, I'm going to take revenge against Carmichael for like not releasing me. Have something where Carmichael says, no, I'll never release you. Not because I want to marry your wife, but because I'm getting so much good data. Right? And have there be something like, you promised me this would be quick and fast.
Yeah. The addition of the wife and the young doctor means that there are these external witnesses to the experiment. And by establishing them as opposed to the experiment, you create like a really easy sort of out for the story. Like they should have been able to stop this experiment. Like it's a doctor and like his wife. Like it just makes a little less sense to me. And I think, frankly, Valdemar coming back makes a little less sense to me. It's fine as like an adaptation choice, but it's just sort of one of those things where it's like, well, the original writer wrote this to talk about this specific thing, and now you're sort of, that's just kind of like a window dressing for like a very standard kind of plot about wives and revenge and old men dying and whatever.
Yeah, so it's funny because like when watching this, I didn't feel Corman being tired in the same way that we found with like the premature burial. And I think it's because, you know, it's 3 different stories. It's 1 a week. It kind of like changed things up enough for him to be able to get things through. But you feel the tiredness from Matheson.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem particularly interested in, he feels like he would rather be writing his own stuff.
Which
like,
is true.
Yeah, like he doesn't feel super interested in like bringing Edgar Allan Poe's work to life. Like the Black Cat loses the power of both stories by deciding to be a comedy. And that's fine. Like it's funny if you enjoy the two of them hamming it up. Like it's
this
fine.
isn't a Hammer picture, Ben.
Oh, I see. Well, in that case, the thing is that like, again, there are changes to the story here that make each, like by melding Black Cat and Cask of Amontillado, there are changes here that make each story weaker. So in terms of like Cask of Amontillado, like here, Montresor becomes an alcoholic and a drunkard because that's what the lead character in Black Cat is. But kind of the whole dramatic power dynamic of Cask of Amontillado is that Montresor is pretending to be drunk to lure Fortunato into getting drunk and creating this false sense of security. So like Montresor is sort of the more conniving of the two. Like, again, it's these little things that don't really matter, but that show you that like the story's out of whack now. For instance, you know, inviting Fortunato over for dinner, and then he starts serving him the Amontillado. And in this version, the Amontillado's drugged so that Price will just fall unconscious and he can wake up chained in the basement. So we don't have to really answer the question of like, why would he just sit there while you brick him up? But the thing is, Amontillado is a dessert liquor. You have it after dinner. And you've made Price into a character where like, yeah, Fortunato's like a wine connoisseur. He's really excited about the Amontillado in the short story. But here, Fortunato's like the world's premier wine taster, the world's premier wine snob. He would know that Amontillado is a dessert wine and be like, oh, this isn't proper to serve me at this time. We should have this after dinner. So just like little things like that, where you've changed things in a way that show that you don't understand what the mechanics of the original story were. And I think by introducing this idea that Montresor's like keeps hallucinating, you know, creepy crawlies everywhere just to do like some cheap jump scares here and there, that ends up weakening the whole thing of like the cat meows.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as good. Obviously, though, I totally agree with you. The story that suffers the most is Morella. And it's on so many different levels. This version of the story, I think my biggest frustration with it is not just how different it is from the Poe version, but this version doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like,
yeah.
It's very vibes-based writing. It's very like, and then this happens because who cares?
That's definitely the vibe that I get from Matheson. Like, I don't think it's that he didn't understand what Poe was trying to say with Amontillado or whatever. I think he just didn't care. Like, either because he didn't have the time to care or he didn't have the inclination to care.
Yeah, like there's stuff in Morella that makes sense on a dramatic level, but it doesn't make sense on a mechanical level. And what I mean by that is the original story, the mechanics of how things are happening makes a lot of sense. Morella is a woman obsessed with mysticism and the occult and reincarnation and stuff. She's a very brainy woman. She dies in childbirth. in the process of dying in childbirth, it is very clear what she has done is like transferred her consciousness to the child, right? So the child grows up being hyper smart and like already knows all these things and is a lot like Morella. And, you know, this creates an abomination because the child doesn't really have its own identity, right? And then once she's kind of revealed, you know, the kid kills over dead because she doesn't have an identity of her own, right? Even though that's very supernatural, there's a kind of logic to it that you can follow because, especially when it's coming from a male writer, because I think Morella is a story that's a lot about fear of the feminine, because it's a story that's about like the thing in Morella, like the moral of the story is like, don't let your women read too much, guys. Like, it's like, oh, she became less beautiful and withered away as she got smarter. And I liked her less the more she read. And eventually she got so smart that she was able to transfer through the womb her intelligence to the daughter. And that made her daughter weird. And I didn't like her very much. And, you know,
he likes the daughter, but yeah.
Well, it makes her weird though. And he's like, I'm not going to name you. You're off-putting. Like, it's this thing that's like this fear of like female agency and intelligence. And the way that this reincarnation happens, like there's a logic to it where it's like, yeah, well, she died in childbirth. So like they were physically connected at some point while the child was in the wound. And in that moment, Morella transferred her soul from one place to the other. Here, it's like
a few months later after birth.
Well, not only that, but like it's not, her soul doesn't transfer to the daughter at birth or even at death. Like it's
like a possession.
Yeah, it's the ghost of Morella, but there's a bunch of stuff in the visuals of it that really bothered me for not making sense, where like Morella's mummified body's on the bed. Lenora returns home. So Morella's body gets less dead and just looks really sick. And then the ghost leaves it and then goes into Lenora's body, which somehow body swaps them. Like it's not Morella's ghost in Lenora's body. It's Lenora's body's like transmuted into Morella's body, which is now totally healthy and alive again. And she's like, aha, I've done it. And it's like, you've done what? What is it that you've done? How does any of this work?
And then she attacks Locke for no reason, it seems.
Yeah, for no reason, it seems, because the story's established that her animus is with Lenora. So, I mean, I know you said when we were watching it, it's like, well, it's Locke's fault that she got pregnant, which maybe that's what's going on here. But then like it's Lenora's body where Morella's used to be, except now Lenora's has the same death look as Morella's.
Yeah.
Like it's like, what is going on here? What's the point of the story? Like it's very muddled because it's just kind of trying to do some creepy stuff without really thinking through what it's trying to say about anything. And overall, what it ends up being is it feels like the reason Morella's the way it is because they were like, well, we should do one story, the first story, that's exactly the formula of the first three movies, where it's always about someone coming to a big mansion on the hill and finding Vincent Price has gone crazy because his wife is dead. And we should do that and like get the formula out of the way and then transition into these other two stories. So they just like turned Morella into a version of these other stories, and it all feels less like Edgar Allan Poe and more like EC Comics, like Tales from the Crypt. Like they all have like a weird, ironic twist at the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the fact that it's vibes-based is what I'm kind of picking up on, it succeeding to still feeling like a Poe story, even though they've kind of butchered how the story actually is. But if you've read Morella, you kind of see it's not exactly a short story. It's kind of like a monologue. Like it would be a hard thing to adapt. I'm not trying to like hand wave away Matheson butchering it. But I think that might be why they thought, oh, this like monologue-y thing might be the best choice to try to cut up to fit that typical story structure of a Corman Poe picture.
Mm-hmm. I think what I see here is like, I totally will give Matheson the benefit of the doubt on the fact that, yeah, like a lot of Poe's stuff is hard to adapt because a lot of it is like a vibe and then a spooky ending, right? But what I see here in the way he's adapting them is that he's not even really interested in the core interesting themes of those stories. Like there's ways that you could take that core concept of Morella and expand it out into something interesting. But like here, Morella isn't even established as someone who was like into the occult and knew how to do these things. She was just like super hot and then she died and that's sad.
Yeah. So I think we agree that Matheson, kind of shit the bed a little bit. But I think the music was really, really good. Mm-hmm. I think the cinematography was fine. Mm-hmm. Like nothing like groundbreaking here. I think that the special effects throughout the movie were okay. Mm-hmm. The ghost effect was neat in Morella. The way that they did some of the quote unquote supernatural, or at least like hallucinatory stuff in Black Cat was just like stretch the frame, have it go a whooshy whooshy. Like it's like, come on, guys. I
did like the extended sequence where Laurie's character is drunk and they've put like a weird lens on the camera so that he looks like all short and squished just because it looks funny.
Yeah, I did enjoy his fever dream of his wife and Fortunato tossing around his head.
Yeah.
It was silly. It was whatever. And kind of the melty face at the end with Valdemar was a little bit of a letdown. Yeah. It just looked like chunky peanut butter on his face.
I think for me it was a letdown because they put a weird lens on the camera for all the shots of it, which feels a lot like you don't have confidence in your effect, so you're going to distort the frame so we can't quite see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was a little disappointed with that stuff. The makeup on Price when he's like a little crazy or ill or whatever, like they had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this movie's still a fun watch, especially if you have affection for Price, Lorre, and Rathbone. Like, if you like those guys, this is a fun time.
Yeah, I would agree. Shall we move on to ranking?
For sure. I will say I had a really tough time with this.
I had a surprising easy time.
Well, I hope that solves my problem.
So, just to call out some waypoints here, you mentioned that one of the contemporary reviews was like, go see Night of the Eagle instead. So that movie we watched in episode 341 is currently ranked at number 48. And the other Corman Poe pictures that we've seen, Fall of the House of Usher is at 11, Pit and the Pendulum is at 14, and The Premature Burial is at 99.
Steep decline.
Steep.
I walked away from this movie with the overall opinion that was pretty mid.
Yeah.
So I went looking for the middle of the list, which is number 161, which currently is La Strage dei Vampiri, which we just watched recently. That's Slaughter of the Vampires, which breasted boobily.
Yeah.
I believe. Liked that one. I started looking like up and down from there, just trying to find a ceiling and a floor, and really had a hard time. Part of it maybe is the anthology nature of the film, so it's kind of hard to like average that out in your head. But also like there's just such an eclectic bunch of movies here that ranked in various places in this part of the list for various reasons of like, oh, well, we liked the cinematography here, even though it's written less good than this other movie that's below it, like
less good
kind of stuff. So where I ended up with a range is I worked my way up trying to find a ceiling, and I found it came from outer space at 141, which I think is like more original than this. It certainly, it's the one with the beholder in the cave.
Yeah. And it's like in the desert.
Yeah. Right beneath that is Beast from Haunted Cave, which is Key Largo with a monster in like the south. So I thought this could maybe be better than that. So I made 141 my ceiling. And then I started looking down from the middle of the list. And again, it's like, how do you compare this to like Strangler of the Swamp or White Zombie or like Beast with Five Fingers? Like, sometimes I look at this part of the list and I'm like, why is, Dr. X beneath Dead Men Walk? But there all are reasons. And you can listen to 300, 400 hours of a podcast to learn those reasons. But regardless, it's hard. It's difficult for me to figure it out. I ended up making my floor The Killer Shrews at 183.
Chef's kiss of a movie.
Because the way I ended up kind of arriving at this range was a very tried and true method of comparing these films because I was having such a hard time. And that's just a simple test of would I rather watch this or that? Mm-hmm. And we get there and I'm like, if you put 4D Man and Tales of Terror in front of me, I'd probably watch Tales of Terror, So I ended up with this big range, 141 to 183. Can you help me out, Sarah?
Probably not.
Oh, no!
So I was okay, looking at other Corman movies, even just the Poe movies, I was Premature Burial at 99, Tales of Terror does not belong in the top 20 with Usher and Pit and the Pendulum,
Mm-hmm.
Premature Burial, yeah, I was pretty hard on Ray Milland. I think it's tough because that movie you can kind of feel Corman's a little tired, but this movie you can feel Matheson's just phoning it in.
Absolutely. But this movie has Vincent Price and Premature Burial doesn't. And that's basically...
Truly. This movie has Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Basil Rathbone.
Yeah.
It knows why it has those actors. It got us in the seats. We're fans of those guys. We're excited to see them. So I was this feels like a really good spot for me. Right above it is Bucket of Blood at 96. Also Corman. I think it's the highest ranking non-Poe Corman movie.
Okay.
Which feels really proper to me.
Yeah, Bucket of Blood's great.
It's super great. The next ranked Corman movie is It Conquered the World at 110.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel Tales of Terror is 100% better than It Conquered the World. That conquered the world? Come on. So based on that, I'm I kind of feel good about just slotting this in above Premature Burial.
So, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would raise up that's in this area as a counter is the Tingler at 101. How do you think this... I know you didn't like the Tingler as much as I did, but how do you think this fares against the Tingler legitimately? I think one of the things about this movie is it's creepy and it's spooky, but it's never really scary. And you can tell that I think Corman and Matheson are starting to trend towards making
Spoopy?
spoopy. They're starting to trend towards making these movies fun more than focusing on making them scary. And as much as the William Castle movies, because of their gimmicks, can be a little goofy, the Tingler, he's still trying to capture that diabolique feel, right?
True.
With the scene where everything's in black and white except the blood that comes out of the tap that's red, or you know what I mean? There's still some creepy stuff in that. I'm fine putting this above Horrors of the Black Museum just because I don't want to award misogyny. But I bring up the Tingler as just something to consider.
I hear you, and I would agree. Below the Tingler are movies like Horrors of the Black Museum, which is also kind of mid. We have Mysterious de Ultratumba and The Return of Dracula, which is Dracula in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just double checking Mysterious de Ultratumba, what that one is about. The Black Pit of Dr. M, Mexican.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, it starts off with that shot on the scaffolds.
Oh, yeah.
Before he gets hanged.
Yeah. That one was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Do you think maybe beneath Mysterious de Ultratumba, but above Suburbs Dracula?
What I'll say is that Horrors of the Black Museum isn't very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And is just kind of stuff just happens on screen.
It's very mechanical. It's very we go from this murder to this murder to this murder to this murder, right?
Yeah, and Michael Gough is fun, but I think that the chills that they do achieve in Tales of Terror far outweigh Horrors of the Black Museum. So that would slot it in just underneath The Tingler.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the thing about Mysterious de Ultratumba is like, yeah, it has some like really great shots, but I remember it being like fairly, and like it was designed to do this. It's fairly formulaic and following a universal horror movie formula.
That tends to be the letdown with a lot of the Mexican horror movies, is they are, as cool as they look, they are often just aping other movies.
Yeah. At least of this vintage.
Yeah. Okay, I'm fine with slotting this in at the new number 102.
Okay.
All right. Then entering the list at the new number 102, it is Tales of Terror from 1962, directed by Roger Corman. A year after this movie came out, AIP did essentially a parody called Comedy of Terrors.
Oh.
That's like a lot of the same actors, but it's directed by Jacques Tourneur. Because Richard Matheson was like, you should hire Jacques Tourneur. He's an amazing director, because I liked the Val Lewton movies in the 40s. Like, Matheson wanted him. I'm still
not wrong.
I'm still undecided about whether we should watch that for the podcast or not, because it's very much like, it's called Comedy of Terrors, right?
Depending on when we hit it, maybe it will become a good Patreon thing.
Sure. Yeah, it could be a horror adjacent title.
Well, folks, if you would like to see this list, you can go to our website, screamscenepodcast.com. There you can find links to the many episodes that we have mentioned today, as well as our appeals box. If you would like to contest this or any other ranking, you can drop us a line through our Ask Box on Tumblr, or you can reach out over email at screamscenepodcast@gmail.com, or over Blue Sky or Patreon.
Scream Scene updates every other Wednesday on SoundCloud. You can subscribe to the show through our RSS feed and get access to it on a large variety of podcasting apps. If you'd like to support the show, let people know about it. Share it online, talk about it to people you know. And if you really like us, head on over to patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the night for as little as $1 a month. Patrons at the $5 and $10 level get access to a whole library of bonus content, and we just would really appreciate your support. It really does help out with letting us have the time to do the episodes and continue to produce such great content for all of you guys. So that's patreon.com/Scream Scene Podcast.
So, Ben, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we are going back to Mexico. We are seeing a film.
After we just, like, threw them under the bus?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a film from Chano Urareta, who we've seen films from him before. It is called El Espejo de la Bruja, or...
Something of the witch?
The Witch's Mirror.
Oh, The Witch's Mirror.
Yeah. So that's what we will be doing next week.
Cool. Well, we will see you then, creatures of the night.
Bye.
Bye.